Hello and welcome to this webinar by Debt Reduction Services, Inc. My name is Todd Christensen, Director of Education here, and this is Dollar Dumps and Spending Barriers, one of the series of Everyday Money for Everyday People webinars based on a book I wrote in 2014 by that same name. We're going to be going through this several expenses, several purchases, several things that we spend money on, a little here, a little there, throughout the week, throughout the month, without really thinking about it because it's just $1, it's just $5, it's just 20 bucks, and then how that can add up over time. There are some financial experts that will call this something along the lines of a latte factor or coffeenomics or whatever. And then there are a lot of critics who will say this is not the reason why people are in financial trouble. I will say this. As a bankruptcy counselor who meets with hundreds of people a year, and as a financial educator over the last 12 years, I can tell you that there are many people who get themselves into trouble on these little things without thinking about them. It just becomes part of their life, and we don't even worry about it because we think it's a small issue, and yet they can balloon into big issues. So, I mentioned we are a nonprofit credit counseling agency. We have been around since '96, and it is our job. That's our job, is to do financial education. Besides these webinars that are all free, and we hope that you'll share these webinars with family and friends. Let them know that they're free. Try to get past the idea that, hey, if it's free, it must not be of value. We know that this is of extreme value and can be very helpful to a lot of people. So besides these webinars, we are out in the community 150, 200 times a year teaching classes on budgeting, spending, credit, debt, savings, identity protection, and so forth. And by the way, if you ever need, if you would ever like us to come into your organization, just let us know. We're happy to do that. So the principle we're talking about today is how these small things add up over time to huge issues. So this is, we got here a little dirt here, a little dirt there, eventually can add up over time to a huge mountain. And financially speaking, that's what these dollar dumps are. We've used to call them budget busters. They're really, I like the term of dollar dump because it's just a dollar. It's a dollar here, dollar there. So what we're going to do, by the way, if you want credit for attending this webinar, if you need a certificate for any program that you're going through, you're going to need to write down 3 passcodes that are given during this presentation, and then take the quiz that corresponds to this class, and that is found at the same webinar, at the same website where you accessed this webinar. The first passcode to write down is STRAW, S-T-R-A-W, STRAW. And you are, of course, welcome to pause this, rewind it, and then move ahead if you need to. But here, we'll keep going here. So let's now go through the meat of this presentation are the examples of dollar dumps. Now, we all have dollar dumps. Let's just get that out there. Everybody has dollar dumps, and I'm not here to say get rid of them all. Many of these dollar dumps are things that can bring us some joy during the day or pleasure. We can keep some of them if we don't have any problems with our finances. If we are budgeting and we are meeting our savings goals and our investments and so forth, really don't worry so much about this. But for the majority of American population, 60% of us living paycheck to paycheck, or worse, it's about 40% living paycheck to paycheck, another 20% actually going into debt month over month. For those households, we need to look at this issue, look at the principle, and decide what are we going to do to minimize the expenses and to make it so we have some more money in our budget to reach some of our goals. Again, I'm not saying get rid of these. I'm just saying let's look at them and what are the possibilities for minimizing their expenses. Okay, so first big one, dining out. Typically, when we are looking at somebody who's filed for bankruptcy, we often see household expenses of $100 to $200 dining out every month. Let's just say you were going out just once a weekday during lunch. That adds up to approximately $1,700 a year. Now, as I said, we often see people who are going through bankruptcy typically in the $100 to $200 range. We have seen $400 and more beyond that, but that we've also seen people that don't eat out at all. But if this is you, understand, $1,700, if that is in your if that is among your priorities, enjoy it. If it's working for you and all your other goals are being met, fine. Is there something else, though, that you would rather do with $1,700 than just have it gone and consumed every day, day in, day out? $1,700, nice trip somewhere, a few nights at a really nice hotel, airfare, a couple of airfares back and forth around the states, or even that's one airfare back and forth to Europe. So just ask yourself, is there something else I'd rather be doing with this? Another one, what are we doing on weekends? I've got the movies here, but for some people it might be an activity out in the mountains, and you might think, well, that's an affordable trip. I've already got the tent, I've already got sleeping bags. Then we start talking about the food, the extra food that we need to buy, and some of the equipment that wears out, and then park fees and gasoline just to get there. But let's say you spent $50 a weekend. That is well over $2,000, almost approaching $3,000 a year. Now, I don't know anybody that I know of anyway that goes out to a movie every single weekend. But if that was something you were doing, or if you're going with friends out for dinner or for drinks, $50 actually can be pretty on the low end for a lot of people. Okay, so here's the latte factor. If you just had a coffee at a gourmet coffee shop once a day during the weekdays at $4.50 even, which is pretty low. A lot of people are at $5.50, $6, $7 even. That's $1,200 a year for a cup of coffee. For other people, it might be a donut or two or three or a dozen. I know that sounds like I think I've tried that in my past. But how much are we spending on the little things here and there, and coffee is definitely one of them. I had one of my former colleagues here at Debt Reduction Services, Inc. was in a class I was doing in the community and shared her experiences. She said, you know what, I finally woke up one day and realized that I was getting up extra 15 minutes early, going about 5 or 10 miles out of my way to go through drive-through and spending all this extra money that she finally realized I just went and got myself a real nice machine and set it, and I'm saving all this extra. I'm not spending nearly as much as what I was before. And I can wake up later, and I wake up to my favorite beverage. So what's the option? Are there cheaper options that will actually be a better situation or better circumstance for us? This is a tough one. Anybody who is dealing with addiction to nicotine knows that just saying, well, I'm going to quit, that may not be the answer. Now, I've said that in some of my classes, some of my workshops before. I've had people come up to me actually afterwards when I've said, look, I can't tell you just quit because it's an addiction and so forth. I've had some people come and say, no, you say it. And these are ex-smokers, said not everybody is motivated by this, but some of us are, that when you actually show us how much we're actually spending on tobacco over a year's time, and we think about other things that we would rather be doing with it, that can provide that extra amount, just a little extra amount of motivation might need to cut it out, or at least cut down on it, maybe. And there are health issues we don't know about with vaping, but certainly it's cheaper. And I've had colleagues here at work who have pretty much quit smoking altogether after about a year doing vaping. And so I'm not promoting one or the other. I'm just saying from a financial standpoint. But if you're a pack-a-day smoker at $5.50 a day, if you don't get weekends off, $1,700 a year is a that's $2,000 a year. Again, what kind of trip? What kind of that's more than you would spend on a brand new car, pretty much, or at least a decent car. So, and I'm not promoting car payment, by the way. That's another thing that I wish we could get out of the habit of being in is just automatically assuming everybody's going to have a car payment. But at $550 a day, that's $2,000 a year. And if you're more than a pack a day smoker, of course, it's going to be a lot more than that. So consider what are the options, ways to minimize. Another dollar dump here that can be pretty kind of hit a tender spot for a lot of people is talking about cutting their cable, cutting the cord. Are we stuck on having cable TV or satellite TV? In the digital age, when every movie and just about every show you want to watch can be streamed and for fairly affordable, or things like a Netflix or Amazon Prime, there are still, the majority of American households, 70–80%, are still paying for a monthly cable or satellite package. You know what? If that's in your budget, enjoy it. If you are looking for ways to cut your expenses because you have other things you'd rather do, you will, I promise you, survive without cable. I have been a huge sports fan in my life, and even though it's been now almost 30 years since I cut the cord, I haven't paid for cable, I haven't had cable. When there's a big game on that I really have to see or really want to see, I've got friends who've got cable. And hopefully they're not watching this because they're going to feel used. But, hey, when there's a game on, I call them up and say, hey, can I bring over some chips? And I get to go over, watch the show for a price of a bag of chips, enjoy it with some friends, and I don't have to vacuum up the house afterwards. So otherwise, if you're talking about an $83.50 a month cable bill, that's $1,000 a year. $1,000 a year. And the reality is if you've got sports channels, game day channels, or if you've got premium movie channels, it's going to be much more than that. And I'm amazed by what I see in people who are struggling and considering bankruptcy, who have $250, $350 a month, $350 a month bills for cable TV and internet. So, and just realize that when they are telling you, well, because you can call them up, and most of these service providers have an internet-only package, but they're not going to advertise it because it's very minimal. It may only be $35, $40 a month, $50 a month at the most, unless you're up in Alaska, maybe Hawaii, where it's going to be $75, $80 a month. But they're going to try and sell you a package. Well, you know, if you go with the home phone and the cable or satellite television package, your internet's going to be a lot cheaper. No, don't fall for that. That is marketing. They are selling you more services than what you're asking for, and they're just making more money off of us. So, you know what? Again, if it's in your budget, enjoy it. If it's not, don't let them sell you into something that we can't afford, or that is going to take money out of our pocket that is supposed to go to something else. This one is for any of those services that we have in our household that we can be doing for ourselves, but that we spend, that we pay other people for. Now, this could be a car detailing. It could be mowing the lawn, yard work. It might be house cleaning. Whatever we can do for ourselves that we pay other people to do, we have to consider that. Now, if physically or time-wise it just doesn't work for us, I understand that. But again, these are just places to look. And it's actually, if you're detailing your car or washing your car at a car wash, even just once a week, that's approaching $1,000 a year, $650 a year. Can we do that cheaper at home? Yeah. And you know, I heard the argument once that car washes will recycle water. And so, whereas if you're doing it in your driveway, it ends up going right down the drain and out into the nearest river, which, you know, that's a whole other issue. But be aware, what are your options? Would it be cheaper to buy your own riding lawnmower, $1,000, or you can get a used one much less than that, versus paying somebody $20 a week to mow your lawn or more, or to scoop your dog's poop if you got pets. Here's one for cell phone. Again, one of the other ones that kind of amazes me currently. We're talking about cell phone bills that I see with people who are filing for bankruptcy in the $150 at the very low end to $450 for 3-4 lines at the most. Again, this is a case where we're being sold more than what we need, and we're buying into what everybody, what these companies are saying in their ads, as if an ad is the truth. There are, of the 4 main telephone companies, there are 2 that are much more expensive than others, and they tout that, saying we have the best coverage, and so you need to go with us because you may not have coverage. Have you tried it? Have you tried it lately? With some of the other ones, much more affordable. And do we really need, again, do we need to be spending $150 on just one phone? There was a time when, you know, we were thinking, hey, cell phones are going to be kind of liberating. We were not going to be stuck at the home phone. That we were complaining it was $50 a month for a home phone. And now we're just letting it take over. The really dangerous thing about cell phones, though, and it's not just the plan, it's this mentality and this consumer-oriented view that we've got to have a new phone every year or every 2 years. The technophiles, it's time to tone it down. If you can't afford it, don't do it. Your phone will be fine for another 2 or 3 years. Save up for it. Don't finance it. Now, companies are going to say, well, we don't finance phones anymore, and so you don't have to pay interest. Yeah, well, what do they do instead? They just raise the price of the phone and spread it out over 24 months. And so we regularly see families have 4 phones being financed in their monthly bill, and all it takes is a reduction in income or an illness where you're out of work for a couple of weeks or a month, or an accident, whatever, and that bill becomes an anchor around our neck. And so minimize that, because even at $50 a month, which is, you can find an unlimited everything right now for $50 a month pretty easily. In fact, you can find it for $35 a month in many stores. It's not going to be the best phone in the world. It's not going to be the fastest. You're not going to be able to store every single photo you've ever taken on it. But compared to where we were just a couple years ago, it's going to be fantastic. So consider looking at not just the top 4 companies. There are these second and third tier companies, prepaid phones, that you can actually get unlimited everything for $20, $25, $30 in some cases. They're not going to be as convenient. I've done some of these. Sometimes you have to dial an extra number at the beginning whenever you make a phone call, and coverage is not going to be as solid, but it's an option. And then this last one here before we move on to a few other things. This is one where, you know, when we start talking about the lottery and gambling, my favorite description came from one of the classes. Somebody in one of my classes says that the lottery is a tax on people who are bad at math. And I'll have people say, well, somebody's got to win. And we all want to believe that it's going to be us, but it's not going to be us. I did these figures. I went through and I found out what is the expense, or what is the odds of us actually winning a Powerball. Let's say 4 tickets a week. For 15 years, you think you have a pretty good chance if you were to do that for 15 years. You still have a better chance of being struck by lightning, not in that 15-year period, not once, not twice, 3 times, not 4 times, not 5 times, but 7 times. And yet that's not chance, because if you actually stay indoors, you have a pretty good chance of not getting struck, because you can actually control some of that. If you want to play deal or no deal, figure out how to win deal or no deal, not 10 times in a row, not 100 times in a row, not 500 times in a row, not 1,000 times in a row, not 25,000, 3,000 times in a row. If you can win deal or no deal 3,000 times in a row, not 1,000 times in a row, and then miss it, and then do another 2,000, but 3,000 times in a row, that's what it's going to take to win deal or no, to win the lottery Powerball, playing 4 times a week. Instead, if you would take that money, let's say $10 a week, or $520 a year, put that into it's just an index fund. Chances are you're going to have approximately $30,000, $40,000, and that's not chance. That's pretty close to, not guaranteed, but there's a really good chance, like 95% chance you'll have $30,000. There is actually a 1 or 2% chance you might have $50,000. There is virtually no chance that you're going to have zero money, which is what you're going to have playing the lottery. Except people say, well, I'm going to win. I've won. I get $5 here. I get $2 there. If you've ever been in line or if you've ever done this yourself, you know that when somebody wins $5, $10, $50, that's not what they're looking for. They're looking for the big payout. So they just say, well, buy me some more tickets. So people who win don't actually spend that money. They just buy more tickets. And over the 15-year period, you've really only put in $17,000 of your own. You're pretty much doubling that in a 15-year period because of compound interest or returns on the market. So here's your second passcode. It's called CAMEL, C-A-M-E-L. CAMEL. Make a note of that, C-A-M-E-L. Okay, so let's in this last section, let's talk about what we can do to redirect the money that's going to these dollar dumps, this mindless spending, and get them into some of our goals. Where do we want to send it? Now, go back to where you found this, access this webinar. There's a link there to our handouts. You can download this handout for free, and then in that handout, you'll find on one of those pages, you'll find a worksheet. It's called the Dollar Dump Worksheets and Commitment. Go in there, fill out that worksheet, commit to making some changes. First of all, figure out what your dollar dumps are. You can list in there, here's what I spend on such and such an item every single week or every single month, and add it up. Figure out what are your dollar dumps. We've all got them. I know what mine are. Mine is pretty much anything to do with chocolate, but I try to minimize that, and yet that part takes that's kind of part of my daily or at least weekly ritual. So go ahead and pause this. Go download the workbook, fill out that worksheet, and then continue on with this. Okay, so what do you do after you do that? Well, put your dollar dumps under a microscope for a few months. Track your expenses. Figure out how much you're spending on these dollar dumps over time. Are you still spending on them on a weekly or a daily basis, weekly basis? Figure out where your money is going. Track it. One of the things you're going to have to do is when you are asked, would you like a receipt? We have to say yes. Practice it. Here, pretend that I'm the cashier. Would you like a receipt? Yes. Yes. So that we can go home and make sure we're tracking where's our money going. Because if all we're doing is just, even if we're among those few that are actually balancing their checkbook, it doesn't tell us what we're spending the money on and what the dollar dumps are. Get the receipt and use a tracking form to figure out how much we are spending on these little items here and there. Okay, so kind of the last principle here, this is the spending barriers idea. So we've talked about the dollar dumps. Now, what do all these things have in common? The water, the money, the furrows here in the field, the traffic, the clouds, and the wind. They all flow in the direction of least resistance. Gravity, pressure. Traffic will flow toward wherever there's less traffic. Water will go down the furrows in the rows because it's less effort for the water to go down the furrows than it is to try and go over the banks. Clouds will go wherever there's less pressure. That's where the wind is taking them. Money goes in the direction of least resistance. So what are some of these ideas that will put up resistance? These are things like a spending plan or a budget. That is one of these walls that help our money go in the direction we want it to go. A tracking form, figuring out where our money is going. Again, this is helping us figure out where's our money going. And then also, when it comes to one of our the largest expenses in our household every month is groceries. Currently, average man, woman, and child in America spends in the neighborhood of about $150 a month on food, man, woman, child. Now, smaller homes are going to spend more than that. If there's just one of you, it's probably going to be $200 to $250. If you're living in Alaska, it's going to be $250, maybe even $300 if you're living by yourself. Larger homes, 4 or 5, you're probably going to be down in the neighborhood of $100 per person. And with a household of 4 or 5, you could even get further less than that. I can tell you that from experience because I am married to a wife who is absolutely fabulous and knows how to shop. Spend an extra hour a week planning her spending and looking for best deals. And this is not even the special couponing, but we can spend as little as $50 a month per person in our home on food. So figure out a menu. This is one of those barriers that will help us spend money properly on what is most important to us without going to the store. Of course, we know don't go to the store when you're hungry. Even if you've heard Brian Regan's take on that, why wouldn't I go to the store when I'm hungry? Great comedian. I think it's Brian, maybe Jim Gaffigan. But anyway, if you go to the store when you're hungry, you're going to not just buy the food that you like, you're going to buy the food that you just like but you didn't mean to buy. You're going to spend money on extra food. Because one of the things you'll notice if you go into a grocery store, if they have a bakery, that bread comes out of the bakery right about 4 o'clock, 4:30, just before all of us on our way home from work are stopping in just to get a loaf of bread and some milk and end up coming out with $50, $60, $70 worth of stuff we weren't planning on. Create a menu planner. Create a menu, shop with a list based on that menu planner so that we know, well, how much, what I have to get. You can even, there are lots of menu planners out there. We have one available on our website you can download for free. You can, I think, ideally organize it by aisle so that you can just go right down each aisle and avoid those aisles that you don't really need to be going down. One of these kind of odd things is that if you shop on the same day, try and do it at the same time every week, you're actually probably more likely to spend less money than if you waited until you needed to go shopping. That's because by saying that we're going to shop on the same day every week, it forces us to be better organized. Well, what do I need? What do we have in the pantry? If you just wait until you're out of food, you're going to be going home at the end of the day and thinking, on your way home, thinking, oh, yeah, I need to stop. And you're going to stop in when you're hungry, when you're in a hurry, when you're stressed. And you're not even going to know what you're looking for, just something that sounds good for the night, and you're going to end up spending more than what you need. And then do we use cash or plastic? Doesn't matter if it's credit card or debit card. The reality is, human nature, if you use plastic, you will spend about 15% more than if you used cash or even a check. Remember those paper things we used to write out and we get so frustrated with when the person in front of us in line is writing out a check? Using cash or a check actually means that we're going to spend less money. So if, right off the top, if you are one that goes to the grocery store and always uses a debit card, leave the debit card at home. Take only cash, and you will find that now, all of a sudden, you're spending 10% less a month or 15% less a month than you were before. What does that mean in real dollars? Well, if there's 4 of you in the home, and you're spending about $200 a month on each person, that's $800. You can cut that down by, let's see, $120. $120 a month less that you can spend just because you're using cash, and it forces us to make some important decisions at the grocery store. So what's the hands-on activity here? Go back to our handout and choose a time and day of the week that you're going to go grocery shopping. Commit to shopping with a list. Last of the passcodes, BACK, B-A-C-K, BACK. All right, so what's the follow-up? Track your grocery spending. Ask for receipts. Note that what type of payment you're using whenever you go grocery shopping. Compare how you spend money and how much money you spend at the store when you're shopping with debit or credit versus shopping with cash. And then commit to using the one, and I can virtually guarantee that it's going to be the cash, where you spend the least amount of money. So that extra money that you were spending previously, you can either use that for some short-term goals. You can use that to pay down debts. You can use that to increase your savings, to add to retirement and so forth. So thank you for being here, for joining me on this for this webinar. I encourage you to consider taking the other webinars in this series of Everyday Money workshops. You can find those at the same place that you access this webinar, or always through debtreductionservices.org. There you'll also find the quiz, corresponding quiz, and the handouts. Great opportunity if you have kids, and to have them take these classes as well and learn to budget money before they're out on their own, and so they don't have to make mistakes to learn. Thank you again for joining me. My name again is Todd Christensen. We are always available to help and answer your questions, whether they're having to do with budgeting, spending, credit, debt. About the only things personal finance we don't get into are investments, insurance, taxes, estate planning. But use us, you can't abuse us. Like, that's my motto. We're here for you and look forward to hearing from you at debtreductionservices.org. Have yourself a great day.